welcome everyone. This has been long awaited. We have been really excited and looking forward to this. So we're so happy, Sam, that you can be here. I just want to introduce her a little bit. She is Sam Martin, the founder and CEO of Media Maison. Did I say that right? Media
That is
Maison?
correct.
Okay. And she has tons and tons of experience in communications and PR. Globally, headquarters in New York and then also in Hong Kong. She has nearly 2 decades of experience. Would that be accurate to say in public relations and brand development?
It's getting closer to 3.
Okay. And she has just so many cool stories. I've had the chance of spending some time with her on the phone and hearing just so many different people that she's worked with or companies that she's worked with. And so it's been really exciting to just hear that one-on-one. And so I'm really excited for you all to be able to have that chance as well. And so today, what she is coming to us with is just some real world insights. What does the world of communications look like in practice? When you get your degree, what is possible? And she may even have some opportunities for WGU students. So we are so thankful that you're here. Happy that we have this opportunity. And I am going to turn it over to you. If you would mute while she's presenting, if you have any questions that pop in your head, you're welcome to put it in the chat. And then at the end, she has already said that we can have a time of question and answer at that point, right? All right. Well, thank you again, Sam, and it is all yours.
Thank you. Well, hi, everybody. I hate that I can't see anyone's faces and you all get to see. I started this with Laura earlier and I said, if you want to know what PR really looks like, just look at how dead I look at the end of the day. I always like to do classes like this or lectures like this by starting off with a little bit about my background, because I think it kind of ties into sort of how I built what I built, and the sort of family and background I came from. I am fifth generation, born and raised in Hong Kong. My family is from the toy industry. My grandfather was the first person to manufacture a battery operated toy back in the back days. And I went to boarding school from Hong Kong, and then I went to college in Boston, and then got my MBA in Boston, and never wanted to go into the toy industry at all. I had very influential family members who were in that business, and I kind of wanted to do something for myself and sort of stand out for myself. And so I took a shot at an internship at a very, very large firm called Burson Marsteller in Los Angeles. And for every internship that they had, there were probably between 3,000 and 5,000 applicants. And in those days, we made negative $400 a month, because that's how much it cost to park in the building. And we did grunt work. I mean, it was back in the days before, I date myself, before the internet and before, we were faxing things. That's how bad this and old I am. But we were faxing things, but it was, it was tough, and you kind of got thrown into the trenches, and I really wasn't sure what PR, I had sort of kind of understood what I was getting myself into, but really wasn't sure. And they had very different practices at their firm. They were a much larger global firm, and they had a healthcare practice and they had a law practice, all different, focused on different areas. And I was put into the technology practice at first. And I tell this story for a myriad of reasons, especially when I talk to people who are still in school, because I think it's important. There was a day when I made a very, very big mistake. I had faxed the wrong clipping to the wrong client. And the chair of that practice looked at me and said, Sam Martin, you can make wood look smart. And I remember I had a moment where I could have either bitten my tongue because I just felt the tears coming out of my eyes, or I could have run out of the room. And I had about 2.2 seconds to make a decision. And that decision was that there were 4,000 people behind me who wanted my internship. And so I chose to bite my tongue, and I said it would never happen again. I left Burson Marsteller 5 years later as the senior vice president, operating Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco, Chicago, and Sacramento. And I opened up their very first consumer products division. So I tell that story to students because I think it's important to see that, every decision we make can lead us down a different road. Had I chose to go running out that room that day with my feelings hurt, embarrassed because I had made a mistake and embarrassed at being called out in front of a lot of people, my world would have taken a very different turn. I then spent, several years at Burson, and we all had to sign very, very tough non-compete clauses. And so I decided one day I'd come from an entrepreneurial family, and I decided one day that I could do this on my own. And it was very frightening. I was about to leave a very large job, um, which was very secure, and I couldn't take any of my clients with me. But I made the decision that I could do it on my own and I could do it differently. I had worked at Burson in a very corporate environment, and I wanted to offer clients something different. And that is how Media Maison was born. And Media Maison's tagline is PR without the BS. And we say that because we are sort of known as an industry of spin. And a lot of times we spin our own clients, not even to the media, but to themselves. And I wanted a firm where I would be able to pull my entrepreneurial experience with my PR experience together in a way that would benefit smaller brands who didn't have these huge budgets, but also be able to tell them the truth about things that maybe in the world of their expectations. And I feel like a lot of firms that are out there make a lot of promises to clients that they can't keep. So I'll stop it there and move on to our next slide. So I started Media Maison. We now are celebrating its 20th year this year. And my favorite type of clients are smaller brands, definitely entrepreneurs, people who are doing things that are interesting and different. And we have sort of shaped ourselves into a firm that covers the topics that you see listed. Consumer brands, meaning anything that you can eat, drink, accessories for your home. The only thing we do not do is clothing, and that's a whole nother topic that we can get to. We also deal in hospitality, restaurants and resorts. Funny enough, I found myself back in the world of toys. I figured I would do full circle with my life, and I would go back into the toy industry, and do it through the world of PR. And then we work with celebrities. We've launched the brands of many influencers, and again, startups, entrepreneurs, and big events and big brand launches. So we kind of cover the gamut in what we do. And again, we started with me in my apartment in Los Angeles with a laptop with a $2,000 a month client. Today, Media Maison has on our roster, we've probably represented over 700 clients in our time. I have a staff that, as was introduced, I have an office in New York, which is where I am now. I have an office in Hong Kong, which is where I was born and raised. I have an office in the UK, and I have a satellite office in Los Angeles and in Portland, Oregon. We are about to open a satellite office in Australia and Sydney. So I've been able to branch out, and I did it very, very strategically, by understanding what my clients needed, keeping my overhead low, and being able to expand at the right time in the right industries. So I didn't try and do it all at once. I did it very methodically, and I went to things that I knew. So, going back to toys, it was very easy for me to go to the toy industry because I understood the toy brands, I understood manufacturing and production, and so I was able to go and represent and those types of brands, understanding who they were. And I think what a lot of our clients think of us as different in one way is that most PR firms don't understand the building of a business. So most PR firms don't understand things like, a product launch or manufacturing or product development. And these are things that our firm does understand, and it brings a knowledge to the table for our clients that most other firms don't have. And I think that was really important. And it was a way for us to stand out in a sea of 1,000 boutique PR firms that are out there. We were able to offer our clients something that other firms didn't have, which was that knowledge. And as a side note, before we go to the next slide, it's we had found that a lot of clients would come to us and say, I have an idea for a product or a brand, but I have no idea how to launch it. And that's not normally a question you ask a PR, a comms, or a marketing brand. Normally, you're sort of in the stage of, I've already thought of my concept, I have an idea, I know what I'm doing, how I'm making it, I even have a name for it, but I don't know what to do from here. What my media maison, and just so you know, is the French is media, and then the French word for house. So media house, and then métier maison, which is the French word for business, is business house. So we created a sister firm that we take on 3 to 4, no more than 4 clients a year, where we have brands that come to us and say, look, I have an idea for this, particular product, service, etc., but we have no idea how to launch that. And that sister firm will then navigate them through who is your target demographic, how to build your name, why that's so important, all the things that we wish as publicists we could do with our clients before they get started, because sometimes we're lumped with things that are, oops, how do I pitch that name that I wish was different? So Métier Maison gets to help launch those 3 to 4 brands a year, and then we hand them off to our sister firm, which is Media Maison. Next one. So again, we talked just very briefly about some of the brands that we worked with. Some of the brands on here, I'm sure you recognize. Hasbro is a family brand of mine. Kenmore is a major appliance brand. Razor Scooters, Kensington Tours, the Mandarin Hotel Group, Nobu, which is a Japanese restaurant chain that was started by Matsuhisa Nobu. And again, probably over 300 brands that we've represented. And we do celebrities, and I do not do their movie PR. I could think of nothing more awful than walking down a red carpet holding someone's skirt. So the clients that we take on are celebrities who have their own brands. And there's a difference here. A lot of celebrities get paid to endorse a brand. And then there are celebrities who actually have an idea or concept of their own that launch a brand. So Robert De Niro, who is known for his movies, has brands such as he is a partner in the Nobu Restaurant Group. He owns the Greenwich Hotel in New York. He owns the Tribeca Film Festival, which was launched, after 9/11 as a way to bring people back downtown to Tribeca. And those are his brands, so we represent them. I'm sure most of you have heard of Shark Tank. Damon is a very good friend and a client. Started out as a client, has become a very good friend. So, we represent anything that Damon signs on Shark Tank. Some of those decisions that he makes are great. Others we would wish he would not. But we have, it is our task to represent those. And then one I threw on there was Orlando Bloom, who some of you know from Pirates of the Caribbean, is another good friend of our firm and of mine, who I launched a business with 10 years ago, a toy company business, actually. We were talking about how his son at the time was so young and loved to play. I said, you must get so much stuff sent from toy companies. And he said, you'd be surprised. He's happiest in the backyard playing with a stick, pretending how to be a knight in shining armor. He doesn't really want the Hot Wheels. And I said, it's funny, no one's really done much with the world of makeup, dress up and make believe. And so he and I came up with a concept together that we then launched together. And I found myself in an industry that I thought I was never going to be a part of, and was able to utilize, my PR now background to help promote that brand. And then I ended up selling that brand to a larger toy company. So those are just some of the names that we have worked with. So I always like to explain to people, especially clients, that there is a very big difference between PR, which is public relations, advertising, and marketing. And, while it may seem sort of common sense in some ways, and others, I think it's misinterpreted and people get confused, especially clients. Public relations and what we do every day is we take a brand and a story and we pitch that idea to publications, broadcast, or digital platforms. And we have no idea. An example would be we pitch a Shark Tank product to BuzzFeed, and we get an editor who's on the hook and loves the story and thinks it's great, and they want to include it in something. In PR, it is organic, earned media, and we have no control over the messaging. So we can send them a sample, we can position the product in the right way, but at the end of the day, it is up to the media and their objective opinion as to how they represent and portray the client. Obviously, it is not our intention to put our clients in a place where they're going to, be reviewed badly or be reviewed against bigger brands. We want to do our best to keep them in the most positive light. Earned media is the most difficult media of all because the competition is so vast. And I will tell you a couple of statistics that I think are interesting. My friends and my girlfriends at the Today Show will tell you that they get, on average, between 1,000 to 3,000 unsolicited pitches per day. And there is not a chance in heck that they're going to be able to look through every one of those. And so they go into what we call the black hole. And so what is so imperative in our industry is that you build relationships. And we'll get to that a little bit further, but those relationships are what get you to be one that stands out from that 1,000, because that 1,000 gets clicked, select all and deleted. So earned media is very difficult. The other issue with earned media is, let's say we're looking at a magazine or a newspaper. A magazine is a better example. You say you have maybe 200 pages in a magazine. Of that 200 pages, 110 pages are advertising. Now that leaves you with 80 pages. Of that 80 pages, your client may fit on one particular page that they do every month where they cover best home products, for example. And they do one page of that in that 200-page publication. And they cover 4 products a month. So now you're competing with thousands of other brands who want to stick out and want to get into that publication. So again, the competition for us as publicists is incredibly, incredibly difficult. That versus advertising, where that 110 pages of that magazine, you are able to pay for. I can choose what images that I want to place, exact content I want to write. I can choose the exact verbiage I want for a digital ad or for a TV commercial. You are guaranteed it because you have paid for that space. It is not organic, so you control the messaging. However, an example of why earned media is much more successful over advertising media is because I have to, as a consumer, see something that is an advertisement, an average of 5 to 7 times before it actually generates in my brain versus if I read about something. So an example would be, let's say, a restaurant. If you saw an ad for a Italian restaurant in a paper or your local paper, and you saw that ad, you would flip to that ad and keep going until you got to the sports section or to the entertainment section. But if you read an article about your favorite celebrity who was at that restaurant, all of a sudden it would pique your interest a little more. So earned media is always going to be more beneficial in terms of ROI or return on investment to the client than advertising is. It is why advertisers will tell you that you need to redo advertising over and over again until it actually sticks into the brain of the consumer. Marketing is a completely different animal. We are now talking about, not PR, not advertising. It's a part of a bigger picture. You are looking at who is your target audience. That from that target audience, what magazines or publications or TV shows are going to fit that demographic? What is the positioning of a product? What kind of pricing are you using? Is your pricing model effective for the entire country, or are you only appealing to people who live in San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago? So marketing is sort of what we do or what firms do prior to PR and advertising. You've kind of mapped out your roadmap for the brand, and now what you do is you implement that either through public relations or through advertising. And I always like to say it in simple ways. Think about it. PR is people talk about you. Advertising is you pay to talk about yourself, and marketing is the strategy behind all of this. What are the most important skills in PR? Learning how to make really good coffee would be at the top of my list. But more importantly, it's I think are four really important things. Judgment. And that seems, again, common sense, not so common. Understanding what a good story is versus what a good story is not. We represent clients of all kinds here. And, we will have clients that will come to us and say, this would be a great story for X. Because in their mind, that's going to be that perfect place where their product is going to get seen. And we as publicists have to check our clients at the door and, explain to them that just because they're in love with their baby that they birthed, the whole world is not going to be. And not every show is perfect for every brand. So we understand not only what publications are looking for, but what journalists are looking for. That is our job. It is what people hire us to do. People hire us to know that, the Today Show is on from 7 a.m. in the morning until 11 o'clock in the morning. There's a 7 o'clock hour, an 8 o'clock hour, 9 and a 10 o'clock. They are all called the Today Show, except for Jenna and Chanel, which is on at 10 o'clock. But the first three are called the Today Show, but they are very different hours and they involve very different content. So it's understanding what goes in what box of that content and where your client is going to have the best luck being pitched. So that is sort of what we are paid, and we learn to do as we get better at our jobs. We learn to do, and also as publications come out and as publications change, we also learn to, we're sort of forced to understand how that world is changing, and it is our job to guide our clients through that. Understanding the media, understanding that they're in the days when I first started, you had newsrooms that were full. Today, you have one reporter who is covering what we call four different beats. So maybe the person who is covering entertainment is also covering fashion, but she's also covering the horoscope section, and she's also covering, your latest celebrity sighting at her local XYZ. So that poor person is doing the job of four people that used to be the job of four different people. So we as publicists have to understand that it is imperative that we know who we're pitching, that we're not pitching people, that we've done our research in who we're pitching, that we're not relying on databases, which has made a lot of people very lazy, that we actually go and do research on stories that they've written before. And so part of our pitch will sometimes be, if we're doing what we call a cold pitch to someone we've never worked with before, we will go and read something that they've written before, and we will then comment on that story in our email that we send them. So now that person knows, I've invested the time in knowing who you are as a writer. You may invest the time in reading what I have to say to you as a publicist about my client. Understanding about timing, understanding seasons, understanding that, in print publications, what you see on a newsstand today was put to bed and closed 4 months ago. And the reason for that is because the magazine's sole job is to sell advertisers. So they want to close their advertising 4 months ago. So you need to close your issue 4 months ago. So when you're pitching somebody, let's say Good Housekeeping magazine in November for their December issue, that issue has gone to bed and been put to bed in August. And that is something you learn as you get to work in doing what we do, but nothing frustrates a media person more, or a journalist more, or a producer more, when you haven't done your homework. And that's something that we teach, junior people and interns that start with us is, one of the first sort of classes we give interns that come to us for our intern program is we throw them a magazine and we say, here's 2 clients, tell us where they fit in this publication. If you were to pull that client in this publication, where would they fit? And it's something that your brain becomes trained to do as a publicist. So when you're looking through a magazine, or you're watching a television show, or you're looking at a digital platform, understanding, I watch TV, or I watch, content that's online, digital content, consistently thinking about where my clients would be a fit. I read an article and I go, darn, that would have been great for our ex-client, but I now know who to reach out to, and I'm going to go ahead and reach out to this person now. So when they do a follow-up story, I want to make sure my client's included in this. So it is something that our brain is just trained to do on a regular basis. Relationship building. I think it is the most important thing if you do nothing else in any part of comms at all, whether you do PR, marketing, social media, any of it, it is all about relationships. And I think that, you know, email has made life very easy. Texting has made life very easy. We've lost sort of a human connection. And we have found, or at least I have found, that my relationships that started when I first started in this business that have continued to this day is based on those personal relationships. It is being a resource to journalists. You know, you're not, if you may pitch someone and they may say to you, you know what, I'm not working on a story on that right now, but I am working on a story on this. Would you happen to know someone in this area? I may not represent a client in that area, but I'm sure as heck going to go out of my way to help that journalist, because that help is going to buy me brownie points when I do go back to that journalist later. So it's keeping track of those relationships. It's remembering when a media person says to me, sorry, I haven't emailed back. My son broke his leg in soccer. I make a mental note of her son broke his leg in soccer 2 months or a month ago. And in my next email, how's Johnny doing? How was his soccer break? The fact that I've made that connection with him or her has bought me leverage in my relationship. More importantly, in that, it's having the ability for them to trust us. You know, journalists work on very short, especially producers, on very short turnaround times. They make a decision on a Monday. I actually am dealing with something right now with a client where a Today Show segment is happening and the client has to make a decision on whether they want to participate. They had 4 hours to do it. I've committed to the producer that they'll have an answer in 4 hours. It's us understanding that they're on time deadlines. And if I screw that up in some way, I've now lost my credibility, which in turn does not help my business or the other clients that I represent. So again, relationships. Persistence is the last one. I tell this to people all the time. Pitching is something we do every day, and it may take 10, 20, 30, sometimes 50 pitches of different angles, of looking at, let's say, a cup of water, not just as a cup of water, but as a vessel to hold something, as something that had flamingos on it. How many different ways can I tell the story of the cup of water? And so that I have more chances to get my cup of water in front of the media and to not get myself despondent when I don't hear back. Because as I went back to the sort of one of the earlier slides, when a producer is getting 1,000 pitches a day that are unsolicited and she's not looking at them, you're going to end up getting no responses. And so people get very frustrated. And I always tell them, you never know. And all it takes is that one little, hey, send me more about that. And all of a sudden that send me more about that turns into, wow, okay, send me a sample of that. Now all of a sudden that turns into, you see that placement in an online platform or you see it on a television segment. As a publicist, that is the biggest high we can get, is why I still do what I do to this day. I do what I do to this day because it never gets old for me. When I can see what the power of media can do to a small business and how it can change the lives of families, especially family businesses, what a Today Show segment or Good Morning America segment or being on Jimmy Fallon or Kimmel, or getting into an influencer's account that has 1 million followers, and they, whatever that little thing is that happens for them, what I can see do for their family that has struggled with a brand or a product that they've kept churning and burning for years, when I see what that does for them, that is life-changing for me, and it keeps me doing what I'm doing. So never forget to be persistent. The most important skill is in PR. We are problem solvers. Things go wrong every day. I say here, shipments get delayed, clients panic, stories change, get cut, producers move deadlines. It is again, our job and what we get paid to do is to be calm under pressure. I have a great example of a problem that can go wrong. It's actually two that I think are always good. We had a client that had a cookie company. They were two investment banker fathers whose kids had nut allergies. and they were tired of going to Whole Foods and buying what they would refer to as barks of a tree for their children to eat. They wanted a Nabisco style chocolate chip cookie that just wasn't made with a nut. And they wanted it to look like something you could buy at Walmart, look like something you could buy at Target, and that was their goal. So we help launch their brand, and we get their brand on the Today Show. And of course, we have once the sample is there and the segment is done, unless it's a physical person, we're not there. So it is in the hands of the producer. And a cookie that is sitting under the hot heat lamps of of overheated television lamps and has also been mixed with the freezing cold studio. And you have someone like the weather reporter Al Roker go on and take a bite, and you see him unable to swallow his cookie and says, that needs milk. You just want to crash and die, because now you've waited all this time to get your client on the Today Show, and now Al Roker's making out with a face that looks like he can't swallow it. So our job as publicists is to take a catastrophe like that and turn that into something for our clients that is a positive. So how do we do that? Do we turn it into a viral moment? Do we make it something funny? Do we to add a tagline and add it onto social? Do we find it is our job to find a way to convey to our clients, you know what? The expression "there's no such thing as bad press" can kind of be the truth. There really is no such thing as bad press. And maybe Al Roker choked on it, but maybe Al Roker doesn't have great salivary glands. Maybe he doesn't swallow real well. We'll find a way to spin this. So it is again our job to, a sample gets lost. It's our job to figure out how to get it on a train. That is what we are here to do. We are not here to panic. We are also not here to help our clients panic. If a segment is supposed to air and all of a sudden you've got breaking news that comes in, that jumps in, and you've been waiting for the segment on a show, and a breaking news segment comes in because there's something terrible happening in the world, that is out of our control. There is only so much we can control. But it is our job to convey to our clients, you know what? We missed this one. We'll hit the next one. The producer owes us a favor. We'll find a way to make it work. Thick skin. Again, I go back to what I said before. Rejection is a part of our job. We get rejected every single day. And our clients want, we have clients who have ridiculously high expectations. We can get them in the New York Times, and they want the LA. We get them in the New York Times, and they wanted both the New York Times and the LA Times. So, the client is always insatiable. Our job is to take none of that personally, is to take reporters saying no, not personally, the ignored emails and the black holes, not personally, the death of a story at the last minute. You just have to be able to keep trudging on. And having that thick skin and not getting, it takes me back to the days when I was in that office and Heidi Sinclair said to me, I made wood look smart. That is where my thick skin was built. And is what I sort of implement in the people that work here, that if you give up and sort of throw your hands in the air so easily, then this is really not the right world for you, because this is a world that requires you to have persistence. Curiosity. I talked about this earlier. We are naturally curious about trends, culture, media, people. The more you understand about the world, the better stories you can create. And I say this to people all the time, you have to know what is out there in order for you to pitch it. So it is your job to subscribe to newsletters, to read newspapers that are online, to watch television shows, to check in on trending things that are going on, to make Google alerts, for topics that you find interesting. Because if you're not in the know of what's going on, then you can't pitch things to the world of media if you're in the world of the dark. The ability to think on your feet. It is a fast-moving industry. Things appear and disappear. And again, what makes a great publicist is someone who can adapt and make really good decisions under pressure. And again, never panic. So how do brands get national attention? And if I could answer that question in a sentence for my clients, I charge a lot more money. Brands, all they want, a lot of clients will come to us and we make the mistake of asking them, what is their wish list? And their wish list is always the same. It's always the top television shows, or or the top magazines that are on newsstands or their digital versions. These 5 celebrities, they want to be, walking around with their product. So it is our job to give them a bit of a reality check. A real story, what I call a real story, is things that move beyond just a product's existence. So having a really beautiful handbag does not make a great story, but having an interesting person who designed that handbag, or having an interesting story about how that handbag is made, or where it came from, or how it's repurposed, or it was made for a certain type of demographic. Now you've given the product an actual story. And that is when I talk about peeling the onion. That's one of the ways we peel the onion. Timing, I go back to timing again. Coverage relies on timing, things like holidays, seasonal trends. I mean, every client and their mother wants to be in every December issue of everything because everybody wants to be on everybody's holiday gift list. Sometimes that's not always possible. So how do we then turn that into, is this something that could work for Mother's Day, Father's Day, back to school, over the summer? How else can we position this seasonally? Understanding your audience. Again, we understand that our clients have wish lists, but our job is to explain to that person or that brand that you may think that you belong on that show, but if you actually ever watch that show, you'd never see a brand like yours on it because they don't cover brands like yours. So it is educating not just our clients as to what they think they know, but then educating them as to what is real and what is not real. And a lot of PR firms will tell clients what they want to hear to sign them as a client. I am the absolute opposite of that. And I think it's important to mention, when I sign a client and I take on a client, and 90%, I'm very, knock on wood, I am incredibly lucky that I built this reputation in this industry, that my clients and any new business that we get at our firm comes from 2 different ways. Either from a recommendation from an existing client or a recommendation from a media person. And that to me are the 2 best sort of, if I could get any kind of leverage to my firm. The fact that a client's had a great experience with us and has seen the return on their investment with us and feels comfortable enough to refer us to another brand is fantastic. But even better is a media person, because that media person has dealt with us. They know how we operate. They know that we work well under pressure. So that is where the majority of our referrals come from. Understanding, and that is really from understanding our audience. And I guess a lot of media people, what they appreciate us is that we've done our homework. We know that we've asked the question, and this is something also important. A client may say to you, I want to be on the Today Show. My first question to them is, do you have the inventory to support that segment? Because there is nothing worse than getting a segment booked for a client and they have 500 units or 1,000 units in stock. And I know that a Today Show segment will move anywhere from, could be 7,000 units up to 50,000 units. So now you have a client whose site has crashed because they don't have the bandwidth for a site that can handle that much traffic. Now you have a client who's got a problem with the fact that their stuff got sold out in about 6 minutes. Now you have angry audience members who can't buy that product. And now that wonderful segment that you booked that was to do all this good in the world, you've now ended up with very PO'd customers who are like, well, I don't want to wait a month for the reorder of this product. So it's understanding that capacity of our job too, to be able to very clearly explain to our clients, yes, you may want this, but are you ready for this? Credibility. We work with editors and producers who are seeking legitimacy. So they want to make sure that we have vetted our own clients. Do they stand up in a storm? Have we vetted them all around, from their manufacturing story to their who works for the company, to the way they treat their employees, to their, the things they offer their employees? Does the brand stand up in the way we sort of look at brands today under a social lens? And the outlets today are requiring us to do that more and more. So it is important for us to do that work so that there's no backlash on them if we haven't done our homework. One thing I missed here. Strong visuals. Again, making sure that we have content. The minute we start with a client, it's making sure that we have all of their content. Do we have every video of that product? Do we have every photograph? Do we have lifestyle photographs? Or is it just the product on a table? If we don't have that, is the client able to go out and do that for us so that we can go ahead and sell that product better? So when a reporter or a producer comes to us, we're not scrambling, looking to buy ourselves time to generate that content, but we actually have it. We talked about relationships with the media, consistency, and then momentum. Coverage often builds on itself. So I always tell people, you may think you want national attention. Start small and local. Start at your local paper. Start at your local radio station. Get publicity that way. Build yourself some pieces of press that you can add to your website, which makes it then in turn easier for us to then sell you to a larger national platform, because now it's been a story that at least somebody was interested in telling. And I had forgotten about something I wanted to mention earlier, which is, when I first get these clients that are referred to us, I put them through a litmus test. And what I do is I take that client's brand and I send that website to 3 different people. I send it to a producer of a national television show. I send it to an editor of a monthly publication and to a digital outlet. And I say to those 3 different people, if I were going to pitch this client to you, would it be a story you would be interested in hearing? If we get a 3 out of 3 yes, we feel confident about representing a client. If we get a 2 out of 3, I'm a little on the fence. If we get a 1 out of 3, I'm definitely on the wrong side of the fence. And if we get a 0 out of 3, it is not a client that we usually sign, because nothing makes me feel worse than taking on a client and making, I may see something that other people don't see. I may think this is a great idea or a great concept, that this is a no-brainer. And then I turn around and I send it to those 3 people and they go, I don't really get it. Or, the website didn't really click with me. At least I can go back to the client before they sign with me and say, listen, here was the feedback. So before you come in and jump on ship with us, maybe you might want to tweak those things first, and then let's revisit this again. Because nothing makes me more upset than us committing to a client that we're going to do this work for them, and all of a sudden our first month is crickets. And where I could have gotten that information by just sending out those 3 emails. And I think a lot of firms don't do that. A lot of firms just sort of take on new clients because it's the ability to take on a client. I have gotten to a point in my career where the success of the client is more important to me than the signing of a client. So that is something I wanted to bring up to you guys from an earlier slide. We can go on to the next one. Briefly, I'll run through this fast. Traditional PR versus digital PR. So traditional PR, we're looking at old school journalists, editors, producers who control public visibility. Digital media has kind of expanded that landscape. So now we're dealing with things like podcasts. We've got publications that have now closed but are now only have an online version. We have this wonderful word called influencers that is probably the bane of my existence. And then we have a million social platforms. We have a lot of variety today. There are a lot of options today. So it's made our job as publicists a little bit easier. It's also come with its own set of problems. We now, in the old days, we would have nothing but organic pitching, as we talked about in one of our first slides. Today, we have something called pay to play. And what that is the ability to pay an influencer a certain dollar amount to go ahead and post a story online, or to post a physical post, or just a story, or we have the ability to pay to have someone attend a podcast. That landscape has changed. It still doesn't fall into the world of advertising, even though places like Instagram will require you to hashtag it as an ad. That gets lost. It's not quite as clear. There are other platforms that don't make you be so transparent, but that has kind of changed our world. So the world of digital media has definitely expanded what we do and given us more options for our clients, but it's also come with its own set of problems. Speed has changed. We don't have the timelines we used to. We're living in a 24-hour news cycle now. So what was really interesting yesterday, something comes up today, it's not interesting again tomorrow. So we're dealing with a much shorter time frame, dealing with the same type of client with the same type of expectations in a much smaller time frame. More voices mean greater competition. You've got a lot of brands that are out there that are doing the same thing, that are all trying to engage and compete for those, very similar type stories. We go to influencers. They are now a part of what I call the new media ecosystem. So you have everything from family influencers who've created platforms with their entire families, where they started off, getting toy samples and home product samples, and now they're charging very large amounts of money for, a YouTube video. You've got them who are on social platforms. I mean, and then you have the extra added layer of us having to vet those now, because it's very easy to be able to build your platform by buying your followers and buying your likes and buying your comments. So we now have to vet that, because our clients now say to us, okay, well, we're riding the middle ground here of advertising. If I'm going to pay an influencer to post a story, I need to see what my return is going to be. So now we have to do a little bit more homework and go, okay, the last time this influencer, talked about a baby product, what kind of conversion did they get? How many people watched that video that they posted? More importantly, how many people went to the website of that baby brand to actually buy that baby brand's product? So now our lives in PR has become a little bit more complicated and requires a few more layers. Traditional media, in my opinion, still provides what I call the best credibility. You've got, places like, whether it's the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or, Forbes, that are places that are just sort of what I call solid backbone publications. Inc., Fast Company, Wired, all of those. For a business, it may not convert, let's say, a consumer product into sales, but that business publication will give that consumer product credibility. And that credibility is massive, especially when that brand is potentially looking for investors. If they've got a publication, if they've got a story in an Inc. or a Wired or a Fast Company, and they're being talked about, all of a sudden, if they're looking for investors, which is a part of why they hire PR firms sometimes, that piece of publication or that article in that publication gives them instant credibility. However, it may not move the needle for them in terms of, it's a baby brand and there's not moms who are reading Wired magazine looking for their baby product. So publications play different roles for different brands. The best PR strategies combine what I call traditional media storytelling with digital visibility. So you've got social, you've got influencers, online storytelling, all combined together as one big pie. Our pie used to be divided sort of into 4 pieces. Now it's like maybe, 24 pieces. So it's making sure that each piece of the pie is being covered. And, social media, I just want to tap on this for 1 second. We have clients that come to us that say, we are XYZ brand. This is who our audience is. And yet you look at their social content and it doesn't match the brand that you've been described. So it's making sure that a client's, PR exposure, social exposure, marketing exposure, they all have a thorough line that runs through them. So they're all the same. Everything has to be consistent. You can't be sort of, the haha brand that's the viral video over here, and yet, be the brand I want to be taken seriously over here. So it's our job to kind of keep that in check. And then again, despite these new platforms, I believe that the core of PR will remain the same and has remained the same. It has to be a really great story. You have to have really great relationships in the media, and it's connecting the brand to the right audience. So it's really being able to understand that if you're selling, a widget, who is buying that widget and what is that person who buys the widget reading? So that is our job as publicists, and is, what our clients pay us to have the knowledge of, and that changes daily. So it is up to us to keep ourselves informed. We can't get complacent. We can't sit back and go, you know what? That publication has been doing the same thing for 100 years. Everything changes all the time, even the ones that have been out there for a long time. And we can go on. We are so running late. Integrating social media with PR. I'm going to run through this fast. So it's making sure that PR and social work together. So making sure that you're amplifying whatever press you get on your social channels and your social platforms. Media coverage now becomes content. So while, your people are looking for content constantly, take the media coverage that you've earned for a client and use it as content for your social content. Your social builds momentum. So a lot of times journalists will look at a brand's online presence and see, like, I may have pitched them a great story, but let's see who's talking about them on X or on Facebook or on Instagram or on TikTok. am I seeing the same buzz about this brand on there? So again, you want to make sure that a client is being represented in both their PR part and their social part. Influencers, as I've said, are a part of modern PR. They are now, we deal with them as if they are a media outlet. They're another way to introduce our brands to the audience. Direct access to the audience. Social media is, it's a one click and done, as opposed to, reading a publication, tearing an article out of something, putting it in your purse, it gets lost in your handbag. You see something on social, we've all done it. We've all been scrolling at 2 a.m. and gone, oh my God, that lipstick is going to change my lips. And we've all bought it, and we've all gone, what did I do at 2 o'clock in the morning? But that is something we've all done. And social has helped us make that very, very simple. And then when you have all those things combined together, all of a sudden your visibility grows much faster. Okay, so quick recap. Not every lessons from the PR world. Not every pitch is going to land. Rejection is part of the job. Your relationships, if I can say it again and again, matter. Press releases today mean absolutely nothing. Press releases are used for one purpose and one purpose only today, and that is for SEO purposes. There's no other reason to do a press release anymore. No one reads them, no one picks them up. It's not going to land you press, but it will get picked up and put on the newswire, which will help your SEO. Clients don't understand the media, so it's our job to educate them. Things go wrong. It is your job to remain calm. It is your job to be persistent. Your credibility is everything. So, having integrity in this business, keeping your word, being a resource to people means everything. And I believe that you never stop learning. I mean, I have been doing this a very long time, and I make sure that at least once a week, once a month, I find a new publication I've never heard of, a new outlet I've never heard of, a new influencer I've never heard of, and I follow them, and I make it my job to learn something new about these people or about my own industry every day that I can then share with my own team. Again, some of these sound redundant. Relationships, we are, the most important part of our business is that journalist. Without them, we have nothing. Without that producer, we have nothing. So it is it is making sure that you're pitching the right person. There is nothing a journalist hates more than getting an email that is all about a bike product that you have, and that person says to you, I cover finance. Nothing makes them more insane. So it is doing your homework. Understanding what they cover, follow and engage them. It is not unusual for us to follow journalists on platforms on social and Slack, and then also being aware of the content that they're producing, commenting on their posts, having them see your name or your PR firm's name or your own personal name come up on a regular basis that you're following them. Now they see them, that you're invested in them. They're going to take the time to potentially be invested in you. Consistency builds trust. And relationships take time. I will tell you one story on this that I find amusing. Probably 20 years ago, the Tyra Banks show was on TV, and the executive producer of that show was a very good friend of mine, and he knew that if anyone could find something, it would be me. I'm sort of known as the finder. So they were doing a horrendous story on dieting and how women were swallowing tapeworms to lose weight. And he said to me, if I know anyone that can find me a tapeworm for this segment, it is you. I need a 7-foot to 12-foot tapeworm, and it has to be live, and I need it by the day after tomorrow. Any ideas? And I looked at myself and I thought, I've officially lost the plot. I couldn't get my head around the whole tapeworm thing to begin with. But once I'd gotten past that, I had a few people in my office make some phone calls. We found a university that was within a train ride from our office. This segment had nothing to do with any of our clients. It had nothing to do with any people that we represented. We got an intern on a train to a college. They picked up a 9.5-foot tapeworm that was alive in some weird vat of fluid. We brought it back to Tyra Banks' show, and my relationship with that show and that executive producer, the show ended, but my relationship with that executive producer continues to this day. He has moved on to 4 other shows. He's now with Drew Barrymore's show, and there is not a segment that I pitch him that he does not take, because to this day I will always remind him of the tapeworm that I found him in 24 hours notice. So relationships actually mean something. From ideas to marketing, from an idea to market and brand building. So again, we talked about this earlier. Brands start with an idea. They come to us. Some of the companies we work with come to us with a concept, a sketch, or a product or idea. Most PR firms will take a client when they're already developed, packaged, and ready to go. What we do is different. We talk here a little bit about Métier Maison, which I talked about earlier, so I'm not going to recap this, but we take on sort of 3 or 4 of these clients a year, and we help them navigate what that looks like. We help them launch themselves, and we are able to build them as a perfect media, sort of what we know the media is looking from a vantage point that we don't get most of our clients. And we are a full pipeline that very few other firms are able to offer. Most firms will never be able to tell you what it costs to manufacture something, why overseas manufacturing would be different than domestic manufacturing, talking about, what retail shelf space looks like, why a box should be a certain size if you want to get into a big box retailer. These are all things that are not comms questions or comms related, but they are related to running a business. And I think that, we have that knowledge, which makes us incredibly different. And we are able to secure those clients and then hand them as sort of what we call the perfect client to our PR firm, because now we've done all that hard work and the work that our PR side cringes at sometimes when they get like a Shark Tank brand that we want to cry that we now have to go out and pitch, that we wish we were able to talk to them before they had that brand. We are able to do that here with Métier Maison. My advice to all of you, read the media, subscribe to news, learn how to handle rejection. And that is across all platforms of life, whether it's applying for a job, whether it's applying for an internship. Not everything is going to be a yes. Rejection is not a bad thing. It is a learning tool. And what it does for the people that I've been rejected by or I've had to reject is, how do I pivot? So rejection to me sometimes sometimes I use the phrase rejection is protection. Sometimes when I'm rejected the first time out when I'm doing something, it's because the universe is trying to protect me from something. And that is in the world of media. A client may want something, like I said, really badly, and they don't get it. It's because they weren't ready for it. Write clearly. PR is, if we do nothing else, it is how we communicate. Whatever you do, AI has made life very easy in a lot of different ways. And a journalist will tell you, nothing makes them crazier, and they can spot it in the first 6 seconds. If a pitch is AI generated, they will email you back and say, when you learn how to write yourself, let me know. Get real experience. Internships and hands-on work, for me, they teach far more than a textbook. You have to actually be in the grind to know what goes on, to know if this really is even what you want to do for a living. So I tell people all the time, take a dip into different parts of this industry. There's PR, there's social media, there's advertising, there's marketing, there's influencers. There's so many different facets to our business today. Take a dip in all of them and see what feels right or what feels interesting. Does it mean a job here in America? Does it mean a job overseas for a few months? In a different country, we're learning how to work on their social media platforms. Take a dip in different areas before you make a decision on what you want your career path to be. Build relationships. You never know in your life who is going to come in handy. And I tell you this, not as a publicist, but as an entrepreneur. Anyone I meet, any business card I get, I follow up with, because I never know when I'm going to utilize that relationship. I might be able to introduce that person to somebody else. My entire life and my career has been built on my Rolodex. What I have to sell my clients is my Rolodex. It's not just my ability to write a great pitch or to know what a publication has. It's my ability to have built those relationships with media where my pitch is actually read at the Today Show or read at Jimmy Fallon versus other people who don't have those. Stay curious, right? We are in a world that is about curiosity. We are in a world where you have to care about what you're doing. And if you don't care, if all you're doing is scrolling through TikTok every night and not interested in what is trending in terms of news or social, then, it may not be the right industry for you. So for me, it's about, staying involved in our industry. It's staying involved in the news, knowing what's going on. When someone says to me, like, did you watch what happened at the Oscars the other night? I may not watch the entire Oscars, but I did my homework on Monday morning to find out what the big flub was. So when everyone's talking about it, I know what I'm talking about. So it's staying on top of what's going on in terms of worlds that are trending. Internships, why do I think they matter? Again, you can study stuff in a classroom, but it's really about working with the clients by pitching and by solving problems. You can see how our industry works. It gives you exposure to how fast things work, how relationships are built, how campaigns are done. It allows you to get sort of real world experience. It can potentially land you a job if you do well at your internship. And I can talk a little bit about our internship program. Um, it again helps you discover what you like, as I just said, whether it's you may decide that you want to do fashion PR, you may want to do entertainment PR because that red carpet is exciting for you. You know, you might want to do hospitality. You think that technology is fun. Those internships will give you a chance to dip your toe in and see what things feel comfortable and interesting. And the ones that you're more curious about, follow that path a little more. I say that the best career, look, again, I myself as an example, right? Making negative $400, a month, paying for my parking, that landed me a job of a lifetime that I built. I started as an intern and became a junior account executive, then a senior account executive, then, a director, and then finally leaving Burson as a senior VP, having brought in an entire brand, entire technology, practice to their company of consumer products that they never had. So my little world of my world today started as an intern at a very large firm where, in that one moment I bit my tongue and could have run out the door and my life would look very different. So a lot of people will tell you in our industry that their jobs in their world started in the world of internships. Final thoughts. We are not a glamorous industry. It may look glamorous if you are talking about things like, it looks real fun to be a publicist for a celebrity. I can tell you that celebrity publicists are the most miserable people I know. I can tell you that between the crisis communications that they have to handle and the drama of what they want in their, backstage dressing room, their lives are about as miserable as they come. But to some people, it's really fun. A lot of people, not their thing. But from the outside, it looks great. So again, it's something to try. I believe your reputation is everything. It's how I've built my career. It's all about my integrity, and our industry is tiny. It may seem really, really big on the outside, but we all know each other. I belong to a Facebook group that has 30,000 members. It is a PR Facebook group specifically for our industry that has 30,000 members. There are probably 500 of us that contribute on a regular basis. We all know each other. So when one of us has a bad experience with an employee or an intern, trust me, that makes its way through that funnel very, very quickly. So reputation means everything. I always say to people, be the person who figures things out. I love when somebody asks for forgiveness rather than permission. I love someone who takes the initiative. I love someone who comes into my office in the morning and says, I saw something on TV last night and thought of one of our clients and thought this was a great idea. It may be the worst idea ever, but the fact that they thought of it, to me, gets me more excited than anything else. I can hone that brain to think it the right way, but the fact that they had the curiosity to come to me with something like that tells me that they have what it takes to succeed in this industry. Opportunities come from unexpected places. We talked about it earlier in terms of relationships, conversations, connections from years ago, people you went to school with. You never know what can turn into an opportunity. Stay humble and keep learning. I do it every day. I have been doing this a long time. I still make mistakes. I still do dumb things. I still have dumb ideas, but I am consistently trying to learn. I have built a firm that is based on a democracy where I might be the one who, at the top of the pyramid, but we are a democracy here. We don't take on clients unless we all agree on them. We all throw stuff up against the wall to see what sticks, and some of the ideas will fall right down that wall, and some of them are really great. But we're a democracy in my office, and everybody has a voice. And the more that people come to the table with their voices, the more interesting it makes for our clients and a better experience for people who work for us. Any career that you take, if you love it, then it's not a job. I have been doing this a very long time, and when that excitement of seeing a client on a show becomes boring to me, then I've stopped loving what I do. Do I have days where I want to tear my hair out? Do I have days where clients make me want to shoot myself? 1,000%. But majority of my days, I love who I work with. I make what I do fun. We find ways to tell stories. We see our clients that we bring on, we see the lives that we change. And that to me is what I absolutely love. And no matter what you do and what sort of path you take, nothing is a job if you love what you do. So that is my sort of last piece of advice and my final thoughts. I think there is a final slide to this. I'm not even sure what it says. There we go. So I think I'm going to turn it over to, I'm going to briefly tell you about the internship program at Media Maison. I think there's a handout that you guys will get after this. We offer very briefly a 90-day internship program to people who are in school and out of school. Our internship program will end one of three ways. You won't survive our internship program. We will love you and want to hire you, or we will tell you that at the end of your internship that we think you're best suited somewhere else and we will help you get a job somewhere else. Our internship programs here are not get coffee, run dry cleaning errands. Our internship programs are they're very specific. You work in every aspect of what we do. You work from pitching to media relations to social media to building a website to how to deal with influencer to negotiating an influencer contract to copywriting. We cover the gamut. So in that 90 days, we give you as much exposure as humanly possible to all facets of what we do. There is a time requirement. There are homework assignments, because our attitude is if we are willing to invest our time into an intern, we expect the same kind of respect and commitment from an intern to us. So if nothing else, we, if they decide this is not the right, we are not, or PR is not the right place for them, we love the fact that we can tell, we can relay a great story or a great reference to somebody that you might be interested in working with. So, we consider, our part in someone's journey, especially through the world of PR, if we're the first eyes you're looking at it through, as a very important one. So we take that job very seriously. And we have interns who started with us who are now, I have interns who started with us 10 years ago who are now senior account execs who will remember getting put through their paces 10 years ago and, making the same mistakes I did when I made Wood look smart. I'm just a little nicer about how I say it. So we are at 9:07, so we're definitely a little over. I guess I will go to the chat section of this and see if you guys have any questions.
Yeah, and I will, I'll stop recording here so people can ask questions, but thank you so much. Now you guys can see how excited I was for her to come. And not only do you have such a great story of how you started, and it's obvious that you love what you do and you're great at it, but I love that you are willing to come and talk to us tonight, that you are making space for interns so that you can pour back into them. It's incredible. So I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you all for being here tonight. And then you can have some space here to ask your questions as well.
Oh, I'm so glad you guys enjoyed it.